It's time for another amazing tutorial, and this week we're going to go through the demystification of the expressions in the expression editor for drivers in Blender 2.8. Now, having in mind that I created this for specialized training last year, it's my joy to see that when you're watching this video, you're going to be applying all this entire knowledge um, currently on this version of Blender, solid release or either release candidate. I don't know, but thank you very much for subscribing to my channel, and let's proceed on to the tutorial. In this case, the um, steps that we're going to take to create this graphic interface using grease pencil. Last year I also uploaded a quick tech demo of this file, but it is this video that is going to show what exactly we have to create, or we have to connect between parameters for a Blender expression to work correctly. We're going to demystify some of the things that most of us, having 3D previous experience, how we are going to be applying that previous knowledge here into Blender, because as you know, you have to set your mind into the Blender way of doing things that sometimes are not as other 3D packages, and it comes with its complete mindset. So therefore you have to adapt, but obviously when you're watching videos like this, you're going to pick up that knowledge pretty quickly. So let's start. I'm going to be creating this bar with this meter bar. I'm going to be creating it out of a basic shape, basic square, and now I'm going to scale this. And you can, by the way, you can also read the instructions here on the screen, so I'll be talking and you can pause the video and check what it's going on, because I know a lot of things is going on the screen. Like for example, if you want to scale something, you just press the letter S for scaling and then restrict it to the x-axis in this case, because we're working on the front ortho view, and therefore we can use up and down as Z up or X sideways. Alright, perfect. So now we're going to enter into creating a new object by pressing Shift A and then adding a grease pencil object. I'm going to be drawing a simple circle, which I'm going to be driving or moving in this case, restricted to this meter bar that I just created. Now notice how I am going to go into object mode to do this, and when you are on object mode, you do not need to go into draw mode to modify your grease pencil, because it is now being treated as any other 3D object in the scene, except that, you know, a grease pencil object has layers. So let's go into the matter. I want to restrict the movement, so I'm going to be using a constraint with limit location. You can see it right there on the screen. So this ball, this yellow orangey ball, will not pass beyond the limit that we're going to be setting here for the maximum and the minimum. And also this ball is going to be parented into the meter bar, because that's the GUI slider, if we can say it that way. I'm not going to be creating any slider using bones. No way, because right now release candidate or solid release, I don't know which time you're watching this video in, because I tend to do a lot of videos in the past that talk about the future. So when you see it in the future, it is already happening, but I have to preview or oversee what's going to be happening in the next 6 or 8 months ahead of the time. So this is why this video is very old. This is last year, but I found it very useful to post it now so that you can see how the parameters are going to be driving our visibility for the object, specifically for the grease pencil layers that we have on each grease pencil object, because as you know, it nests many different options to create layers, just like a 2D application. So whenever you're working with a grease pencil object, remind yourself automatically, I'm going to be working with 2D layers inside a list inside that grease pencil object. Therefore, we have different hierarchies, and we have a scene level hierarchy, we have an object level hierarchy, we have a property level hierarchy, and then we finally get to the layers level hierarchy. In this case, the last level, talking about grease pencil objects. So that's how we're going to be managing this episode, this tutorial. So we have five different expressions, facial expressions for this drawing, which we have separated on different layers, and those layers have an eye icon where you can switch on and off its visibility, and that's all cool. But since we know Blender 2.8 has now restricted to drive or to set expressions on the visibility of a collection, we cannot do that. But what we can do in our case with Grease Pencil is set visibility options driven by a driver, or by a parameter in this case, directly onto the 2D layer itself. So the list that we have here on each of these layers, okay, on each of these collections, let's call them appropriately, these collections have grease pencils, one grease pencil per collection, and inside that grease pencil object, it's got only one single layer, which is named like the drawing indicates. So in this case, we're talking about the angry one. So we have an angry object level, angry layer level, obviously, and let's rename this correctly so we do not lose track of the things. Layer level, see? Perfect. Now, what's the purpose? Why do you want to create a graphical interface using drivers but using grease pencil objects? Why don't I use, for example, implicits or empties or, I don't know, NURBs? Because you do remember NURBs exist, right? Anyways, let's get into the drivers things. As you can see, down on the right side of the screen, we have a purple eye icon, which basically has inherited now, by right-clicking over it, the driver's scripting session. To open a scripting session, or rather a programming a driver, we need to divide our screen using an extra window, another window, and then you click on the selected parameter. In our case, it's the grease pencil object, and you will see a tab which says drivers. On Blender 2.8 you can directly open this window, but on Alpha, which is the version which I was recording this with, it's gonna show you this layout. Alright, so let's get into it. So the first thing we see, it's the driven property that is going to be happening over this object. In our case, it's the rigid neutral facial expression. And then we have drivers and also the variables. Okay, so we want to use an object to be passing values onto a variable. I'm going to select my object, and then I'm going to tell what kind of parameters I'm going to be reading from this object. Now, here I want to make a short pause. Alright, those numbers you see there, 3, 2, 1, should be arranged in this order. I'm going to freeze the picture because I believe it's best practice for any programmer, any coder, to first define the object that is going to be driving the variable, and then assign the variable after I've defined what the object is going to be. Like this one right here, the space, the red space, should be placed in this position. And the first position should be the variable. And obviously, if I want to add another one, I could do it so. So the right order we should be seeing this is number 1, the variable defined. Number 2, I'm going to be working in that object, an expression. And then finally, if that works well, I would like to add another one. So I believe, as a suggestion for the developers on Blender, that this should be the right order. But of course, if you are using Blender 2.8 and you're so happy that you've been knowing drivers all of your life, you already know what the order is. So let's continue and let's set our object. In this case, drawn ball control. And I'm going to be using the world space transformations for whatever value it's going to give us. That's good. And then I'm finally going to define the variable. In my case, I'm going to just the name var. You can use any name. I'm just going to use this one because it's the most popular. So we have this line. What does this line mean? Well, the value from 0 to 1 represents true or false. Yes, amazing. It's a Boolean. It's a Boolean value. I jumped out of the chair too. Yes, but this line right here basically represents that some value it's going to scale from 0 to 1, or it can go beyond 1 with either case of the expression you're using. But in our case, we are going to be concentrated on zeros and ones for now. Let's start easy, alright? This is going to get complex in a minute, but let's start easy. So you can zoom, you can use your rotate wheel and zoom buttons on the mouse to project this thing. But if you don't know how to do that, or where to go, or how to drive the parameters, you're left alone in this nightmare because you don't know where to start. I mean, should we script an operator? I mean, we could do some average value, or how about if we just use... Oh no, this is just a total nightmare. And I can understand that you are feeling this way because I too was pretty much lost around this. But once you get this video finished, you're going to feel right at home with this. So the first thing we're going to work here is that you also have options to create extra keyframes. Yes, you can also keyframe this, and I'm not going to get into that because we're going easy right now, okay? But I want you to understand that all of the values here, key, frame, value, interpolation, left handle, X, Y, all of those things can help you drive this curve or this actual line to create your values from 0 to 1. That's either true or false. That's either in a Boolean expression, true, or obviously false. Alright, so pretty much clear. We're just walking around, we're getting familiar with this. And of course, if you right click on this, you'll have different options. So let's go back into the subject. We want to override the property for the visibility on this object. Okay, so that's why we have a purple eye. And now we're going to set the values. So how do we do that? What do we exactly need to do to drive a value here on the drivers? Now, you will notice that right now I am using the F curve tab. I am not on the drivers tab. And that's the first thing we want to do. We want to recognize that whenever the value goes beyond 1, all right, it's going to be true for an invisible layer. Yes, it works backwards. It's not that 0 represents blank or empty or hidden. No, 1 represents hidden and 0 represents visible. Yes, I know, another thing to have in mind. Anyways, let's consider that. Just for the second, concentrate on that Boolean can be represented this way. Alright, so let's go. Our evaluation will be here on the expression. And then we want to evaluate that whenever our passing values from the orange ball is passing its translation on X, it's gonna feed, okay, where in the scene that is going to happen. So follow the arrows. I know I'm speaking a little bit off time, but when will it drive and where is it feeding from? It's very important so you understand where the value is coming from. So in our case, we have selected the X location, which you can see right there. And now we're going to set an expression. I'm going to be using int because it stands for integer. For those of you who are coming from another package, you know this, all right? No science there. I'm going to be feeding it from the X location. And now you see that it perfectly fits that expression who is it driving, where in the scene the value is happening. And finally, you can see that expression works. Whenever the expression is higher than 1, we get a hidden object. But what if we want to evaluate for the other facial expressions and just copy and paste the driver? I'm sorry, we can't do that because the other drivers will have to depend on their positions. 1, 2, 3, 4 are beyond 1. So that means that for all of them, all of that will be true. What about if we do some sort of other math? Well, let's try it then. If we say that our variable has to be greater than 2, that means that when we pass the position of 2, we will get the expression to be true. In our case, to be hidden. Alright? So, let's evaluate that using the expression greater than 0.99. So whenever I pass 0.99, invisibility will become true. Alright? There it is. I surpass 0.99, and then invisibility equals true. So now we need another expression, but how do we use the neutral position to 0? Let's say we are going to use a neutral face and that it should be hidden until we pass beyond the happy position. So how do we evaluate that? I'm very glad you asked, because this is why you're watching this video, but you're getting problems.
それはこのように終わらないでしょ
う。It can't end like this. So let's get into the second phase of this. Let's evaluate then. The expression triggers when we have greater than 4 value. So the math calculations take 0 as a starting point, not 1. So we now need to evaluate our facial expression x position minus 1. Okay? So the result should yield true for the invisible driver parameter. So what does that mean? I'm not counting position 1 with the neutral face. The neutral face is 0. So therefore, I need to evaluate that here on the expression. So for my neutral face, I'm going to be setting the variable less than 2. So my position, 0, and 1 will still be true because it's less than 2. So now we have success. The x global position minus 2, which is an integral value, equals 1, invisibility. So the expression for the invisible is true for the neutral drawing layer. And now, the second position, happy, the variable has to be beyond 1. Okay? If my voicing over the video has confused you a little, don't worry. You can watch this video totally silent with no voiceover, and then you'll pick it up even better, because everything is explained step by step, even the evaluations and how are we taking in acquaintance what needs to be done by the operators. Just bear in mind that whatever position you want, you need to calculate one less position. So if you want to stay on the sad right there, that third position, it's not going to be number 3. It's going to be number 2. Why? Because machines calculate from 0. So you have neutral 0 position or 0 value. Happy, that's number 1. Sad, it's number 2. But in the values, whenever we're moving the x-axis, we are already getting positive numbers, or rather integers that are going to be driving the hidden visibility parameters. So evaluation of the expressions correctly reading the x global position to drive the invisibility parameter as true. When the integer is less than 1 for the current position of the yellow ball controller. But we need to tweak them to switch themselves on or off after they pass the position number for the facial expression before them. So we need to tell them, alright, if you're in 1, you're not on 0, and you're not also on 2. So let's go into the formula. The complete evaluation formula should be something like this. Okay, we know the correct evaluation for the expression is happening when it is minus one position of the actual x global position, and then we need the invisibility to be false before that number. So therefore, we're going to set the expression like you're seeing there. False if the variable is greater than 2, and if the variable s is less than 4, else everything it says, or every position it is, then it is true. That's the value we want to feed. And therefore, you can see there that now it reacts accordingly. Fantastic. What we're saying, basically, I'm going to be resuming this. If the slider, if the yellow ball slider is in this position, it is not on the other position previously, and it is not in the position in front of it. It is just in this position. And that is how we feed the correct value onto the visibility parameter. Alright? If this got all confused, don't worry. We're going to start all over again right now. So let's modify this. Therefore, we're going to tell them if it's bigger than 3, but less than 4. So that means it's 3, of course. And we're going to also switch some other expressions here. So in our case, it's 0, 1, 2. Select your grease pencil object, move it on to the other side. You can see the X location on the world space, driving the value there. So, Mr. Schiller, why then we have this line from 0 to 1 if we are going to be only using the variables? Well, that's an interesting question. I, just like you, was pretty amazed that you can evaluate a Boolean value through a graph, through a chart. I mean, that's not how I compute. So we're going to leave that line alone for now, and we're going to board that subject into another video, not this one, because this one is basic baby food for variables and programming and coding. So basically, where you write your expression, it's up here where it says expression. There you can place complete mathematical formulas for driving your parameters. And now this opens up a whole wide possibility for you to start coding your own stuff. Alright, without restriction. Now you need to understand how the AIP calls the other objects and what parameters and what properties of those parameters can be overridden or driven by these drivers. So here's the final test, the final proof, the final concept. And as you can see, what we are evaluating, it's the position of the X yellow ball, and that passes on the parameters onto the visibility for the object properties on the grease pencil layers. Just don't forget, visible means 0 and invisible means 1. In the same way, in that same context, 0 is equals to false and 1 is equals to true. So for Blender, everything is on. Okay, everything is visible. Everything is visible by being off invisibility, and everything is hidden by being on invisibility. I know it's weird, right? But now that this has been demystified for you, you can clearly understand how to organize your projects so you can get this concept of Boolean, true and false, and this concept of drivers, and how to get values, how to get input, how to get the driven values into the drivers. So thank you very much. This has been an amazing experience. I know it's been kind of a long video. Like I mentioned before, Thank you for subscribing to my channel. You already seen the third character of the 7 characters that I am going to be revealing for my next season series. So stay tuned for that. And also, if you have questions about this, please don't forget to type them on the commentaries below, and I'll be doing a 3-hour session video next time that's going to be celebrating our 2,000 followers. Thank you very much for all of your support on my Gumroad, on my Patreon. I'm sorry, well, the Patreon is there. I actually haven't put up any content just yet, because the series are still being developed. At the moment I'm recruiting the voice talents, and it's gonna be super awesome. I mean, you just saw one mystery character. You don't know the name yet, but I'm going to keep revealing onto these tutorials in hidden sight. So let's finish this up. As you already know, position 0 neutral, position 1 happy, but in reality we were confused because we thought, this is position 1, this is position 2, but it's not so. So now that you know how math is done inside Blender and how it is evaluated through the drivers, I hope this lesson has served you well and that you can use this for your own projects. My name is Pierre Schiller and I am a Blender Foundation certified trainer. If you have any questions, reach me on social media. Links are in the description of this video. どうもありがとうございました。